on the Great Terror, and the terrible purge that comes with it, was followed by the Great Patriotic War. After the defeat of the Third Reich, Stalin, who predicts a great future for the great anti-fascist alliance and who tries to avoid the outbreak of the Cold War, 430 repeatedly declares, including in confidential meetings with communist leaders from Eastern Europe, that it's not a question of introducing the Soviet political model. It's possible that if we didn't have the war in the Soviet Union, the dictatorship of the proletariat would have taken on a different character. The situation created in Eastern Europe after 1945 is clearly more favorable. In Poland, the dictatorship of the proletariat doesn't exist and you don't need it. Should Poland move toward the establishment of the dictatorship of the proletariat? No, it's not obligated to do so, it's not necessary. And to the Bulgarian communist leaders, it is possible to achieve socialism in a new way, without the dictatorship of the proletariat. The situation has radically changed with respect to our revolution. What's needed is to apply different methods and forms. You shouldn't fear accusations of opportunism. This isn't opportunism, but the application of Marxism to the current situation. And to Tito, in our time socialism is possible even under the English monarchy. The revolution is no longer necessary everywhere. Yes, socialism is even possible under an English king. For his part, the historian who recorded these declarations adds, as these observations show, Stalin was actively rethinking the universal validity of the Soviet model of revolution and socialism. 431. Maybe one can go further and say that he's also reconsidering the general relationship between socialism and democracy, with even the Soviet Union in mind. To formulate the hypothesis of a socialism under an English king means to put up for discussion, in some form, if not the monopolistic concentration of power in the hands of the Communist Party, then at least the terrorist dictatorship and autocracy. The policy implemented in the Soviet occupation zone of Germany is instructive. The Russians didn't just promote socialist theater, ballet, opera, and cinema, they also promoted the bourgeois arts, and this is done according to the program formulated in Moscow, on the basis that the Soviet system wasn't predestined for Germany, which should, on the contrary, be reorganized on the basis of broad, anti-fascist and democratic principles. Thus, during the first 3 years after the war, there was no real cultural division in the capital, and the Soviet zone continued to play a vanguard role in the cultural field. 432. The start of the Cold War suddenly interrupts that experience and that reflection. The central problem now is the creation of a security cordon around a country brutalized by the Nazi invasion and occupation, with the aim of avoiding a repeat of the tragedies of the past. While the question of the Gulag's at least partial dismantlement is raised in the USSR even before Stalin's passing, 433. A complete thaw becomes impossible. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Soviet Union must concentrate on a new forced march to catch up with the new Western technological revolution. It has liberated itself from German occupation, but it can't allow itself to rest. A new terrible threat has emerged. 434. Especially because a few years later, on November 1, 1952, the explosion of the first hydrogen bomb occurs, 1,000 times more powerful than those dropped on the two Japanese cities. Quote, when the United States government announced the results of the test, in other countries there were reactions of shock and terror. It's obvious that a bomb of such extraordinary power couldn't be used against military objectives. If it wasn't a weapon of war, it could only be a weapon of genocide and political blackmail. Stalin received a report on the American test in the middle of November, and it served only to confirm his conviction that the United States was seriously preparing itself for a war against the Soviet Union. 435. Unquote, not an unfounded concern if we consider January of 1952. To reverse the stalemate in military operations in Korea, Truman entertains a radical idea which he records in his diary: they could deliver an ultimatum to the USSR and the People's Republic of China, clarifying in advance that failure to comply means that Moscow, St. Petersburg, Mukden, Vladivostok, Peking, Shanghai, Port Arthur, Daren, Odessa, Stalingrad, and all the industrial centers of China and the Soviet Union would be eliminated. 436 In the 3 decades of Soviet history led by Stalin, the principal aspect is not the transition from dictatorship of the party to autocracy, but more precisely the repeated attempts to transition from the state of emergency to a state of relative normality, attempts which fail for reasons both internal and international. The permanent threat that looms over the country that emerged out of the October Revolution, or better yet the combination of them. If millenarianism is, in part, an expression of tendencies intrinsic to Marxism, it's also a reaction to the horror of the First World War, which even in circles and personalities distant to Marxism gives rise to the aspiration for a totally new world, unrelated to a reality capable of producing or reproducing such horrors. With the outbreak of the Third Civil War and with the approach of the Second World War, this series of failures finally results in the arrival of autocracy, exercised by a leader who's the object of a genuine cult of personality,